On today's episode, I'm bringing an expert who's been an expert in my life for many years around parenting, parent coaching, ADHD, executive function, time management, so many things that have existed in my life as a professional organizer and productivity coach through a colleague I've known for 12 years, Leslie Josel. She is the founder and creator of Order Out of Chaos. She is an inventor of products, and she is an author, and she is a speaker, and she's a coach. I have so much respect for what she does and how she does it. And I'm saying that not only as a colleague to her, but I'm not a parent. And so when I work with people and families, I want to make sure I'm always bringing in expertise that I trust, and Leslie's the top of that list for me. We're going to talk today in this conversation about raising kids and doing it whether they are neurodivergent or not, raising kids with a sense of resilience and their growth as they approach those ages where they're going to be a bit more independent, whether that's through high school or after high school, and what that involves as parents and the role of parents and parenting in being an usher and a witness to that life that parents are hoping for their kids. There's a lot in this episode, not only about Leslie and her own experience and how she came to build her business and her legacy on how many, thousands and thousands of people she's helped, but some great tips on language and communication and reframing perspective of a parent in those moments that feel tough along the way. Welcome to Surfing the Quicksand. On today's episode, I'm bringing a parent and a coach and someone who knows a lot more about working with kids than I do, because I don't have kids. And one of the things that I've really committed to with this podcast is if I don't have an area of my own expertise to speak to it, I'm not going to try. I want to bring in the best people that I can. So that's why I have Leslie Josel. And she has been a friend of mine for 12 years. We met through the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. We have a great meet cute story of how we met. I'm not going to share it here, but maybe I'll share it in the show notes. And what I know about Leslie is from the moment I met her, she was an instant expert in my mind. She was my go-to whenever I had questions about ADHD, executive functioning, and working with students. She has been in business for well more than 20 years and is a world-renowned expert on these issues and on time management and on helping students and families work through these challenges that show up for them, and also working with people about work. So adults that have struggled, she's had these conversations. She is the founder of Order Out of Chaos, which has a huge presence not only on her own website, but she has Facebook groups and she does webinars and education all over for people struggling with so many different aspects of whether it's around parenting or ADHD or helping their student get through and thrive through difficult times in life. She is the author of a book called How to Do It Now Because It's Not Going Away, which is such an actionable and accessible way to think about time management. She is the creator of an academic planner, which is a tool for time management, which is really designed for students, high schoolers, college, doesn't matter. I can't tell you how many people I have given this to as a gift. My friends, their kids are going into high school, I'm like, this is a tool for you. You're going to college. This is a tool for you. It's really, again, like it's become such an easy way for me to help kiddos in my life and say, I want you to be successful. This is a tool that you can use. She was the parenting coach or the family coach for Attitude Magazine. If you have ADD, ADHD, or executive functioning in your life, in your household, you probably know about Attitude Magazine and know it's the world-renowned go-to expert. And she, for years, had a Dear Family ADHD coach, which those stories really came out of her real-life experience working with families and the real questions that they had. And she understood that if it's a problem with one, maybe there's a broader audience there. She is someone who I think I learned early on. If it works for my ADHD clients, it'll work for everyone. So that's another way that I've used her information and the guidance I've gotten from her over the years is it's not just about my ADHD clients. It's about everyone can learn the how to do it now because it's not going away. That's not just about ADHD, right? It's about all of us who struggle with task and time and priorities. I think where I love her generosity the most is in how much she gives to audiences and to individuals in helping them understand, learn, embrace how to move forward and take action. And so much about this podcast is about helping people get unstuck. And it is through her work, not just as, again, an international speaker, but as a student coach and as a parent coach that I wanted her to come today. Because she works with people every day with the struggles they're seeing, gosh, as a parent, and in this case, we'll talk about as a mom, helping kids get through these challenging phases, one after the next, through school, through college, launching into adulthood. All of these is where she has daily expertise for decades. I am so happy she agreed to say yes to me because she gets a lot of these asks, I'm certain of it. And so I know that it's a special favor to me that she said yes. So welcome, Leslie. Thank you so much for being here.
First of all, I was going to cry. That was insane. I'm like, who is she talking about? But oh my God. First of all, I would do anything. You have to know I would do anything for you. So you didn't have to do all that. You could have just said Leslie Josel is here. I'm like, I'm here for you, Kathy. For anything, because I feel the same. You just have this gravitas and level of expertise when you speak that I hang on your every word. So I am thrilled to be here to help you launch this fabulous podcast. So let's get into it.
Great. So we spoke, and one of the things that I talked about with you is how often I am hearing from clients, whether it's my organizing clients, my career clients, or my friends and family, about their concerns about their kids. I get a lot of questions I'll get outreach from parents of students saying, will you work with my kid? They don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They don't really know where they want to go. Will you work with them? And I talk to them about pluses and minuses of that and what kind of services I bring and what I don't bring. That's not really my niche, but I do try and have a conversation with those parents. But something that always strikes me is not that ask, but the fact that it's the parent coming to me saying, I need help guiding. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
And I would love for you to kind of just start telling us about how you got into the working with parent space. I know you've worked with coaches for a long time, but tell us about parents, how you work with them, the kinds of questions you're getting with them when they say, Leslie, can you help?
Okay, so I'm going to give you my 2 minutes Reader Digest version because I've been in business for 22 years and that could be the entire podcast. And I don't know if you really didn't show up for my story. So what I am going to say is I welcome you, or I invite you to go to my website where the story of how this came to be lives there. But I will give you this piece because I think it is important. So I started my business in 2004. 2004 was a very different landscape than it is now. There was no internet. It really wasn't. The internet in all its form wasn't fully formed yet at all. There weren't podcasts and conferences and summits and all of these things that brought education and research and communication right to our fingertips. You really had to search for it. And I had a child and I am careful. He's 27 now, so I am always very mindful of what I say about him and always have his permission. Parenting number one, that is parenting rule number one. It is never your story to tell. It is your child's. So that is a big thing. I say it at every webinar. And people go, wow, you actually ask your child permission? I'm like, he's not 8. He's 27. He is an adult. I do not have the right to tell his stories anymore unless he gives me permission. I am allowed to say this. He has ADHD. He has executive dysfunction. But back then there weren't all this stuff. So I had to really rely on my gut and my instinct. And back what I did back then was pretty revolutionary. You know this, Kathy. I like took closet doors off closets because what he didn't see didn't exist. And I took the dressers out of his room and put clear bins. So like there was very limited amount of steps to a task and on and on and on that went. And back then, now that'd be like ho hum, but back then, no one was doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I did it totally on my instinct of watching him struggle and untangle his world. And true story, I had a friend who's a therapist who said, came over and saw what I had done and said, man, do I have a client for you? Now, mind you, I didn't do this for a living. Who knew this was even a living? And I said, well, if she needs my help, I'll do it out of the goodness of my heart. And I did. And fast forward, within 2 weeks, four of her friends called and said, it's a true story. I saw what you did at Linda's house. Can you come and do mine? They all had ADHD, all of these kids. I said to my husband who does have ADHD, and I went, but I don't do this for a living. And it's like cool as the day is long. He goes, well, you do now. And that was it. And I was like, I do now. And I'm such a Virgo and I'm such an organizer. So like my T's had to be crossed, my I's needed to be dotted. Like,
Yeah.
what's my name? And
Yeah.
he, God bless that ADHD mind, went, don't use your name because I see big things. We're going to call you Order Out of Chaos and you can do products. And I'm like, what is he talking about? But within a month, I quit my full time job. Within 6 months, I had people working for me.
Oh my
And now,
gosh.
22 years later, we are a global virtual. So you do not need to live near me. Online company. We are known for our programs, our products, our workshops, our webinars to support parents and related professionals who are raising neurodivergent children. That is it. We have a massive, massive, robust company membership. You do not have to pay to be a member. So you can come and choose whatever you want. We have about over 100,000 people
Oh
who
my
come
gosh.
to us. I
Oh
know.
my gosh.
But what that shows me is that, to your point, that there is still that need for community and connection and conversation. And we started with students, and yet what we were finding was the parent was the one who
Right.
needed help.
Yeah.
My student was just newly diagnosed. So this is a lot. And you might not know this, but when you're in the trenches as a parent and your child gets diagnosed with ADHD, the question is, well, now what?
Mhm.
And back then, there weren't many people who took that now what question. I took the now what. I knew what the now what was. So we built upon that for parents going, I need that contractor who's going to tell me what comes first, what comes second. What do I say to the school? How do I get an IEP, a 504, behavior mod, building services? How do I structure my home? So what we were finding is we really needed to support the parent because if you think about it, the student doesn't live alone. They live in
No.
a house, so there has to be a fluidity to what we were doing.
Yeah.
So we kind of shifted, and everything we do is geared to the parent who is raising that student. All the programs and webinars and
I,
coaching.
I think, first of all, I love the organicness of not
Totally.
only, you came out of your house, but the fact that as soon as someone else could perceive your unique value, you blew up, right? And
Yeah,
everybody said, oh my gosh, that no one else can
I
do
need
this.
it.
No one else is
I need
doing this.
No one
And
else was doing this
right.
at all.
Yeah. And I
There was no
think,
such thing. Who knew,
no,
right?
no.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like I made it not made it up in a bad way, but I had to really I always had to like listen and like what were the needs and what were people asking and what were people not saying. It's really important. Like what value could we bring? And a lot of it's not organic now.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's strategic. But back then it was incredibly organic. And I'm going to be truthful to those of you who are growing businesses. Someone would say, "Can you do?" And I'd be like, "Of course." And then I'd be like, "How the hell do I figure that out?" And I
Yes.
would just figure it out.
Yeah.
I would just figure it out.
Like you, if somebody had told me when I started my business that I was going to turn into what I turned into in books and magazines and television and podcasts and all that, I'd
Yep.
say, like you
Someone
were,
said the
no, you're
same thing to
crazy.
me.
I'm
I,
helping people with pantries and basements. No, no, no.
that's what someone said to
Yeah,
me. I was
yeah,
working in people's. Now, I never did pantries and basements. I did ADHD families.
yeah.
That was me. I came in and I took your whole family into account and figured out how to structure your home to untangle your kids' world at home. And then it went to school, and that's how the virtual we moved to a virtual model.
Yeah.
But no, I never in a million years did I start out intentionally. I never said back in 2004, okay, I'm going to have this and we're going to like, but I will say that the thing I feel that I don't mean successful like about my success, but what has been successful in helping families is I feel like I'm always 6 months ahead.
Mm.
I feel like the thing that has made order out of chaos. I like to take me out of it because I am not alone in this thing. There's a lot of people behind the scenes who do this work with me. You just see me though, is that we are always asking our community, what is it we can do for you? What is your one pressing question? What are you not getting? What is your frustration? And I will tell you that 99% of what we do and what we've built, whether it's webinars or planners or products or whatever it is, has come out of those answers. You've sat with me
Yes,
in
yes.
classes,
Yeah.
and I will say it till the cows come home. God, do people even say that anymore? Till the cows come home.
Cows are still things.
Cows are still things. That is why I feel people
Yeah.
gravitate to it, is that we always are like, what is it?
Yeah.
And if you go back and take this 36,000 level view, a lot has changed over the years,
Yeah.
but a lot hasn't. And like I said that, like parents, even 22 years later, still are craving education and communication. And I almost think now even more so because the world of students and children is that much harder than it was 22. There was no social media 22 years
Yes.
ago.
Yeah.
The internet wasn't a thing. We hadn't lived through a massive pandemic. And I will go on record and say that the pandemic really, really screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm a straight shooter. This generation
Yeah.
of college and early 20 kids, and we have not even seen the depth of it yet.
No, I'm certain
So
you're
I
right.
will go on record on that
Yeah,
one.
no, I'm certain you're right. And one of the things I'm even struck by in terms of 22 years in business is the parents you're working with today. Where were they 22 years ago? Like they were kids in school, right?
They were kids in school.
So even
Yes.
for you to say, gosh, we try and stay on the cutting edge of what people are needing and what's going on and how society and education and learning, everything has evolved and you're trying to stay ahead of it. At the same time, for 2 decades, you've had new generations of, I'm new to this. I'm a parent and I have a kid and this is what's going on. And I'm starting at a baseline of zero. They're not starting where you were 20 years ago and saying,
No.
oh, I've absorbed it all. Okay, catch me up.
So here's an interesting thing too, and I go, it's so different than what we're going to talk about, but it's kind of like the behind the scenes thing. It really has a lot to do with student coaching. So like for those of us who student coach and went to student coaching school, because there was a student coaching school that we went to, you learned I want to almost say benign things that you learned. All right, how do I work with a student to teach them time management and study skills? Like things that were not heavy and things that did not, I mean, some of you might think study skills are heavy. I get it. I hear it all day long. But in the grand scheme of life, they're not so heavy, friends. There's a lot heavier things. But my point is like study skills and time management or even organization, they're not hefty, right? There's not massive emotional weight to it. And as time has changed, we see it because I take every parent call that comes in, myself or my coach manager. And the call has changed,
Mm.
where it used to be just something very simple as, my student doesn't know how to study. My student's not very motivated to get homework done. They could really use some time management help. Now, fast forward to anxiety, depression, a friend died by suicide, just coming out of rehab. I mean, the depth of what students are showing up for, we as coaches, we're not trained. It's a very interesting thing. Like I am very, very aware of like where I begin and end, to the point that I myself, as well as my coaches, went back to learn more, not to coaching school, but having doctors who are way more versed in this to come and teach us and talk to us and educate us on this new landscape that even as coaches we're navigating.
Yeah.
That I hope that made sense to you.
No, it
Are
does.
you it. Like I saw it before
Yeah.
before the pandemic, it was procrastination. After the pandemic, it was overwhelm, anxiety. Now it is like all bets are
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
what kids are facing.
No, no
And
doubt.
therefore what parents are facing.
Right. And so that's where I want to shift is you,
Okay.
right? So the conversation of, gosh, the calls have changed.
Oh my God.
And some of it is because life has changed. And quite frankly, I'm sure there were cases that it was anxiety, but they didn't know, right? They
Yeah,
called it
of
procrastination,
course.
right? Our language has changed and
Our
our
language,
awareness has changed.
very much so.
So first, let's talk about kind of the basics. Like, what are the calls you're getting of the kinds of people who you would work with and say, "Yep, you're a good fit for us." What are the calls
So,
you're getting from parents that say,
okay.
"I need help. Can you work with me?"
So the parents who call to get help for themselves,
Yeah.
I want to
Yes.
distinguish. We
Yes.
get a lot of calls
Yeah.
from parents going, my student needs so
Yes.
and so. That's a different call. So my coach man, I take every parent call, believe it or not, of a parent looking for parent coaching because that's my side of it. And I want to hear what you have to say. So it runs the gamut. A lot of them are my student is just newly diagnosed. I said that before. My student has been diagnosed with ADHD or processing or executive function dysfunction, or let's just say EF, it's just easier. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. No one and then what's really nice is I'll spend 45 minutes on the phone with them, even as just just as a chat call, and they'll go, you taught me more in those 45 minutes than a doctor taught me, because that, not disparaging doctors, but they're not in the trenches
Yeah.
to tell you what you should do. A lot of it is school, like, and I'm talking more about parents whose children go to more of like a brick and mortar school. I'm not talking about homeschooling or co-ops or
Yeah.
things like that. We do see that, but it's more like, how do I how do I even get an IEP? What is a 504? What are building services? Or I have one and it's not working. That would probably be the biggest one.
Mm.
Is like, can I send you my 504? And I'm like, want to like go, this is not a 504. This is actually not legal. They've left a million things out. It's state by state. I know everything about every state at this point. So I become that barracuda of, put me in the room and I'm going to fight to get you the services. And I do it all virtually, fight to get your child the services they need. Or do you know you can ask for X, Y, and Z? And I always say, you don't know what you don't know. I know. So that's a big one. In
Yeah.
fact, we are doing more of that now and then I have a child who is, a bit not behavior, like there's levels of behavior. Again, I know where I begin and end. And if you're coming to me with a kid like this, I am sending you to somebody who has an MD at the end of their name. But we are brought, and that's really important. But I have kids who, parents who have kids who are stuck and anxious and unmotivated and, defiant and, I cannot get them to budge and, or, they're overly everything and overwhelmed. That's a big one. Overwhelmed by the overwhelm. And my job is to teach them how to communicate with their child. It's a big one. The communication piece is probably, other than the IEP and the 405s, that's the second thing, is how to communicate to your child.
As you describe that parent and that those things they're struggling with or those things they're observing in their student or in their relationship, the word that comes to mind for me is helpless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just feeling helpless and
Well, that's a
desperate
nice
for
word.
help. Well, it's just that feeling.
There's not only
Yeah.
helpless, there's a lot. I mean, I'm a straight
Yeah.
shooter, Kathy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of frustration and there's a lot of
Yeah.
anger. And my
Mm.
job is to manage your expectations.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Manage their
So
expectations. How are you
I
doing that?
joke, and I don't mean to joke,
Yeah.
but like I know what I'm doing. But like every now and then when someone says to me, what do you do for a living? And I'm either really tired or really, or I've had it, I say I manage expectations, because it's all how a parent gets on the phone. And and I can tell, and I don't mean to disparage parents. I am one of you, right? I have two flown and groans, but trust me, I have seen it all, and I am keeping obviously a lot to myself, but it's the parent that says I need to fix my child. It's the parent that doesn't understand that there are invisible disabilities happening with your student that you need to recognize and understand and meet them where they live. There's something called executive age. I know this is an executive functioning podcast, but I will go super quickly. If your child has any kind of executive dysfunction, they are not going to be their chronological age. So if you have a 13-year-old at home who's 13 athletically or socially or musically or whatever, but they struggle with time or effort or focus or memory or any of those things, they're going to be 30% less their age for all of those challenges. So you don't have a 13-year-old at home, you have a 9-year-old at home. And how you're going to scaffold that 9-year-old and how you're going to support that 9-year-old is very different. And so you need to meet your child where they live. And that is a very hard pill for a lot of parents to take. They don't necessarily want that or agree to it. I'm being totally honest with all of you. So a lot of my job is to manage that expectation of no, you can't fix your child. Know that is, executive dysfunction is I believe it is a disability to some degree. That doesn't mean it can't grow and we can't put systems and structures in place, but your child is where they are and you need to meet them where they are.
I hear a number of different things in there, and the first thing around kind of managing expectations and is you may be sharing an insight with somebody that's very novel information, like, oh wait, my 13-year-old's more like a 9-year-old.
9-year-old.
You have to help them understand that and accept it, right? And not say, no, that's not right. And like, how do you help them accept and accommodate new knowledge and a new framework? There's some, I would imagine, some grieving, for lack of a better term, of like, oh wait, so my expectation of what my kiddo's 13-year-old experience is going to be is actually not true, and that's not coming to be. And then it's okay, well, can I work differently? Do I want to work differently? Do I have the energy? Do I have the tools to work differently?
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
No.
No, but that is it. So I used to call it second shift. So now I'm happily married. My husband's amazing, but I do this for a living. And so he kind of let me lead. So I would work all day and then come home and I would call it my second shift. And it didn't matter how tired I was. It didn't matter how frustrated I was. This was my child. I'm talking about my son I have a daughter who is like, who came out of the womb at 40, that one, like she was totally neurotypical, but it didn't matter. I needed to sit down. I needed to go over things. I needed to have that patience. I needed to make sure that there were things in my home that supported his learning and his processing and his understanding. It did not matter. It maybe was not what I signed up for. And there were days when I was like, put a fork in me, I'm done. But it did not matter. It just doesn't matter. We are all, this sounds very Pollyanna-ish, and it's not. That doesn't mean I didn't get frustrated. It doesn't mean that I didn't go into my car and scream. It didn't mean, but I, we just all don't get what we signed up for. And for me, this was my thing. I knew enough in my own heart that if I put in the time now, that it would pay off over here. And it did.
And that's a big leap for some people.
I know.
Right?
I'm not, that's my job though.
Yeah.
My job now is you to sit across the screen from me and me go like, I love you, but you need to put in the work. And I'm going to teach you. And I'm going to teach you how to put in the work.
Yeah.
Because the work, the work does pay off. Now, it doesn't mean it's you and you alone. And I'm very, very mindful of that with parents. When I was raising my son, I always used to call it Team, I can say his name, you can find it out, Team Eli, that I made sure that there were, people in his world that supported, what he needed. So I'm very much about you all, not, that it's not you and you alone. So that's a really important piece of it, that there's other people in your child's world that has to be fully also on board for some of these changes. I'm not saying it's easy, Kathy. It was not easy, and it's not easy, and I see it with my parents. But what I have found to be the most significant is when I teach parents how to speak to their children.
I was just thinking about the communication piece, right? So you spoke about that as being so critical
It is.
to the need that they have, the work that you bring, and just as you were talking about kind of the team approach of it all, even spouses and co-parents having to be on the same
Yes.
page isn't
Do a
they
lot of
don't
that too.
always that's not always
Oh,
the
they do
case, I would
not. No,
expect.
they don't.
Yeah.
No. But I'm gonna
Yeah.
teach you my philosophy.
Yes.
So this is a Leslieism. This isn't like a schoolism. So I really firmly believe it is a parent's job to set parameters. So you have to understand, I do not believe, as a parenting coach, I do not believe in permissive parenting. I don't. I don't believe it's a free-for-all. I don't believe your kid gets to do whatever they want. In fact, follow me, follow the bouncing ball, that if your child has any kind of like executive dysfunction, what their brain actually craves is consistency, structure, organization, ordination. Ordination means this comes first, then this, then this, then this, because their brain has a very difficult time doing that. And the biggest thing they crave is not being caught off guard. That's like a heart attack to the brain.
Mm.
They need to know what's coming next. Okay. Caught off guardness is probably the worst thing we can do. So, as much as you think your child doesn't want rules or doesn't want parameters, I hate the word rules, their brains actually crave it. And this is something very like, yes, it's great for those that are neurodiverse, but it's also really good for those that are neurotypical too. You do not need to be neurodiverse to crave consistency and structure. The brain actually craves that, right? So I believe it is a parent's job. It is your responsibility as a parent to set parameters. So no permissiveness, meaning you can do whatever you want. In fact, the brain doesn't like that. The brain likes parameters. But what is your child's job, which we kind of sometimes forget as parents? It's their job to negotiate them. And we tend to double down. This is research proven, friends. I have Leslie proven and research proven. This is Leslie proven. This is research proven that interestingly, when our kiddos were little, we gave them choices up the yin yang, right? Do you want to wear the blue sweatshirt or the red sweatshirt? Do you want chicken nuggets? Do you want pasta? Right? On and on and on and on. Those little decisions went. But what you were doing is you were building out choice and control for your student. We call them students. For your student, you were giving them agency over their lives, over their bodies, over their minds, over everything. But somehow or another, as your kid got older, it reversed and we doubled down and we took away that choice and control. This is research proven. As our children got older, we started with the more you need to's, I want you to's, and you have to's.
Mm.
And the older your child gets, the parameters should get wider, giving them more choice and control. Here's the research. The more choice and control, more agency, ownership, you can say it any way you want, you give your child. Okay, does not matter if they're neurotypical or neurodiverse. The less anxious, there's that word again, your child will be, and wait for it, the more motivated they will be. But we think that we can I don't want to say fight, but that we can almost the motivation out of our kid. Come on, come on, come on.
Yeah.
You are like, put a fork in you, you're done. Like, it's not going to work. You're not going to move that needle. But believe it or not, the more agency, I know it seems really counterintuitive, but the more choice and control you give your student or child, sorry, the more motivated they are going to be. There's that whole like, okay, I'm setting your parameter, but you get to negotiate it.
Can you give an example of something that you've seen that demonstrates that?
Well, it can be as easy as like, I mean, you could have I don't know how old your audience's kids are, but it can be as big as like, you want to go out and you've got to be home between. Like pick your betweens, right?
Mm.
Instead of like, no, you have to be home at 11. How about you have to be home between 11 and midnight, right? You decide. You decide. You're in control. And it could be as simple as like, what time do you want to do homework? Not are you going to or when are you going to? That's too open-ended. But do you want to start your homework at 4:10 or 4:35, right? The other reason why we like choice and control is that it teaches your child that you are not responsible. We hear it all the time. It's that emotional vortex of like, but I want to stay out later, but I want to stay out late. You can't stay out later, but I want to stay out later, but I told you no already, but that's not fair. And now you're in your child's emotional, like, tornado vortex.
Yeah.
So if you are giving your student the parameter, they are ultimately responsible. You picked your time to come home. The choice was yours. We are always mindful of teaching parents to use words like choice and control in your everyday language. So, and you're not nagging, you're not judging, you're not angry, you're calm. You know, the choice was yours. You had choice to decide between 11 and 12. You chose to come home at 12:30. I'm so sorry you made that decision. Use decision. And now blah 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 will happen, natural consequences. But here's how we end it. But I am sure without a shadow of a doubt that tomorrow you're going to make a much better choice or next time. We always end that way. Now, that does not mean your child doesn't get a natural consequence. Notice I didn't, but notice that you're no longer responsible.
It was in their hands. They had the information available to them. There was no restrictions on their ability to make any of those choices. They understood, they were informed of their consequences. I won't say understood because that's an assumption.
Right.
And they were able to make a decision. And then the conversation, the follow up was, let's make sure we're both on the same page of how we got here.
Exactly.
What comes next? No
What
blindsiding.
comes next?
And it's still ending with encouragement and the reminder that tomorrow there will be another opportunity to
Right. Like
choose.
Lily's plastic purse, if you remember that book from Thousand Years, like
Yes.
tomorrow will be another day. Now, I just gave you, that was very
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pedestrian.
Yeah.
It's a 36,000 level view. I don't know the age or stage or whatever of your child. I kind of just wanted to give this
Yeah.
template of how we communicate. But it's not just for your child, it's for you. There's something very grounding about you removing yourself from the responsibility of every single decision your child makes,
Yeah.
because ultimately you will be blamed. And I knew early on in my world of parenting that I did not want to be fully responsible. There are definitely things that I am fully responsible for. And the other interesting thing is when I say, I need you to, I want you to, you have to, parents say to me now, they listen, because more I try to change that verbiage and say something like, have you considered? Will you see what I mean? There's something very different than you need to, you want to, you have to. Your child has stopped listening.
Yeah.
But there are times in this lifetime that you are going to have to say to your child, you need to, you have to, I want you to. And if you're doing that, it's like Chicken Little. Do you remember Chicken Little from a
Yes.
thousand years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm aging myself. So if you're saying it all the time, you're going to become white noise, right? You're going to
Yeah.
become that background noise.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do is pick really carefully what are your have tos and want tos, and what can you set parameters and allow your child to negotiate.
Yeah. I think this is great. And of course, in all the work that I do and that you've done in organizing and things, we're so much listening for that language of, oh, well, I have to, I should, I think, right? Even with ourselves, we use that language too much and
Way too much.
in a way that is hurtful
It's
and
also
harmful.
negative.
Yeah.
It is harmful.
Yeah.
It is harmful because and this I will say, this has a lot to do with the neurodiverse brain, and particularly of a child who hears negative messages 200 times a day about themselves. So that signal of you have to is they don't think I'm capable. They don't think I can handle it. They have to tell me what to do. Now, the other thing, I know a lot of you out there are going to go, okay, Lizzie, well, I let my kid make the choice and there was a spectacular fail. That's okay. And I think that's the other issue, the thing that I have seen a very different, like meaning how life, how 22
Mm-hmm.
years has gone,
Mm-hmm.
is this inability for us as parents to allow our children to, as I like to say, sit in their discomfort. Now, it's a great way of saying it. Now, I have parameters around that too. I don't feel like you should allow your child to fail if it is going to be an epic spectacular, like life-changing fail.
Okay.
So what does that look like? Oh, my child wants to apply early decision to a college and they are forgetting the date. Do I have a problem with, do I want you to just go like this and watch them flame out and drink your wine as they miss the deadline? No, I don't. I don't think that that is worthy of a, now there's parameters there too. Do I think if your child is involved with other students, like they have a group project, that you should allow them? No. If it affects somebody else, I have a hard line of no. Like, it's not fair. That's my feeling. Like,
Okay.
but if it's them alone and it's not like a spectacular, you know what I mean? Like an epic fail. Yeah, I think your kid needs to fail. I think your kid needs to see consequences because then I see it all the time that this catching, this, like, okay, I'm standing here so you never have to sit in your
Yeah.
discomfort. And I ultimately that theory of not allowing your child to sit in their discomfort will backfire.
So I want to dive into this because I love that, and I think for all of us, the sitting in our discomfort is the reason we avoid so many things because we're not able, we don't want to, we would never choose that for ourselves. So if I can choose something else, why wouldn't I? But to be on that other side and have to witness somebody and be like, oh, how do I also don't want them to be, I don't want my kid to have difficulties in life. Life's difficult enough, whatever else comes in.
Right.
So let's talk about sitting in this discomfort and the parent's desire to catch them and prevent that for them. I want to, one thing I hear a lot, and again, this is about a little bit about the age of people that I'm talking to. I'll hear a lot of, my kid isn't writing their essay for college. I really want that done this summer. Or they don't want to go on, college tours, or they don't want to get their driver's license. I'm hearing a lot of how those kids are expressing what they don't want to do, and parents don't know how to get past that. Does that feel like the discomfort that you're talking about, or is it something different?
Yeah, well, that's, I think, sometimes I think that's more discomfort for the parent. So,
Okay.
no, and I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
being funny.
No,
It
no,
is,
yeah, yeah,
right? But it's interesting, particularly the driving. So, again, life is fascinating
yeah.
as life going on. I don't know about you, Kathy, but I like had it. I was like, I could not wait till the day I could drive. It was like on the calendar, checking it off. And my father, you'll like, oh, this one, just because New York State said I could drive didn't mean my father said I could drive. I had to pass my father's road test, which, trust me, was a heck of a lot harder than anything New York State was putting me through. There was no 3-point turns. It was, okay, there is a blizzard on the LIE right now at, let's go. You got to learn. It did not matter. I had to learn. So the driving, I am way more apt to tell a parent, you really need to dig deep and find out what it is about the driving your child isn't wanting to do, and do
Yeah.
not push it. Driving is high stakes.
Yeah.
And I am not of the mind that a 16-year-old is always ready to get behind the wheel of a car. It's funny, I wrote a great Attitude Magazine column about it, and it was one of the columns that probably got the most conversation because I was kind of like my New York sassy self, so to speak. And I was like, it does not matter just because your child is of a certain age or because your state says they deem it so or you deem it so. Your child needs to be comfortable. And I think what I would do in that case, if it's your child, is what we tend to do. Here it is again: is, oh, I'm not gonna, I don't want to drive with them. I'm not going to drive with them, or I'm not going to let them drive because it's late or it's raining. And my thing is, you do the absolute opposite. My rule growing, this is not from parenting school. This is from Leslie's school. My father was this way, and my mom died when I was early. I was raised by a man, and I really feel I have some of that in me. My father was like, you drive no matter what. If it's 1 in the morning, if it's 5, he would wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go, let's go, you got to drive. I'm like, why? He goes, you've got to drive tired. You have to drive hungry. You have to drive in the middle of the night. You have to drive first thing. I know he was not so crazy, but completely pragmatic. If you really think about it,
Yeah.
he was just like, you have to know how to drive in every condition, in every way. And I have to tell you, it is, I mean, it's 1,000 years later. I did the same thing for my children. Woke them up. Let's go. You're driving. Like you are not getting in that car because, and yet they drove all the time. They were going to school, get in the car, you're driving. But I'm drinking I don't care. You don't get that choice sometimes in life when you have to drive. And it made most of my kids just very confident drivers.
But it got you, in your case, and got them out of discomfort that we might have
Exactly.
otherwise let them stay in because
Right.
they haven't voiced readiness, right? Like readiness isn't a feeling, it's a
But
choice, right? That
right.
sense.
But readiness,
Yeah.
but my point is that if your child's not ready to drive alone or take,
Hmm.
that's the, you
Yeah.
have to allow that.
Yeah.
But if you want to get your child to a place where they might, instead of pulling back sometimes and saying, because that message you're sending them sometimes is that they're not capable.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
want you to send a message of, you can drive, but you have me in the car. Now, if they are absolutely fearful and they are like having like the no, obviously you're not going to put them in the car. And what I would tell you to do that is like, again, is like what I find very fascinating about parenting, and I was a big culprit in this, is a parent will come to us and say, my kid doesn't want to like go on college tours. I'm like, okay, well, have you asked them why? And the question, and like, oh no, 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 I didn't ask.
Yeah.
And I'm, or the best one is not so much college, it's usually like screen time. Like, we want to put rules in our house about how much screen time my kid should have. And I'm like, I am 100% a believer in parameters around screen time. I am. Same way I had parameters around television time or phone time. It's the same thing. So my question is, well, have you sat your child down? Not an 8-year-old, because then I think an 8-year-old, you have more agency. Remember, the parameters get
Mm.
bigger as your child gets older. But if you have a 16-year-old at home, have you sat them down to say, what do you think is the right amount of time? And most parents will know, I've never had that conversation. And I'm like, I want you to start there
Yeah.
because you would be surprised what some kids would actually say. They will actually go, you never asked me. So I'm not saying it's a perfect like way,
Yeah.
but believe it or not, your first line of defense when you want to set a parameter is actually going to the person you're setting that parameter for and saying, we need to set a parameter. That's fine. The need. You want to
Hmm.
help us negotiate it.
Yeah.
What's your intake here? It's
It's
a really fascinating. So there's that kind of like way that I want. Now, here's the thing, what I said about sitting in the discomfort. A lot of parents will come and say, I can't believe my kid asked for this, or I can't believe my kid asked for that, right? Like, I don't know how to cheat. My kid always wants to buy something, or, they want to go to a concert during a school night, an hour away. And I got so angry that they asked that. And I'm like, well, how did they handle when and they're like, well, they got angry, but they were okay. They kind of stomped off and went in their room for an hour or two insult. And I'm like, well, did you throw them a parade and a marching band for that? And they're like, what? Here's what I mean. It's not what your kid asks for. The discomfort is how they handle the no.
mm.
Why are you upset that your kid asked for something? I ask for things all the time. That doesn't mean I get my way. And
Yeah.
nobody's angry at me for asking. Okay. I don't think you should ever be upset at someone for like, they can ask anything they want. That doesn't mean they get it. So I think we're pivoting in the wrong direction. We're focused on the ask. What I'm focused on is the response. How did your kid handle the no? Because if they handled it pretty well, then they're sitting in their discomfort pretty well.
Yeah.
And in my world, when a kid handles something really, really well, we give marching bands and parades.
Good. Well,
We do.
this is where I want to pivot to is the handling it well. Because I believe, again, not a parent, I believe that that doesn't always just happen naturally, that they grow into handling things well. And
Absolutely not.
this is
Nope.
this
Nope.
is training and practice
And
and
being calm.
stumbles and rewards and all the things on the way. So if I want to spend kind of our last period here talking about that kind of that high school kid who's going off to college next year, 2 years, 3 years and the way around how parents can help kids handle things well when they're on their own in college.
Okay, couple of things. Is us not, couple of things. Us not rushing in to fix them. I don't mean that you're not there to scaffold and support. I am like I have the crown. I am the scaffolding and support queen. But when our child is not handling something well, or something happens to them that has nothing to do with us, we tend to go like, oh, you're going to be fine, or we think we're cheerleading. Oh, it's not so bad, and you're going to get over that. And believe it or not, you're actually stating your opinion to your child, and they dig in deeper. Have you ever noticed, those of you at home, when you're talking, you're like, it's not so bad, it's going to be fine, you get over it, your child only gets more upset.
Mm.
It's because your kid is in that right brain emotional mode, discomfort, discomfort, discomfort. And you're thinking, I'm going to help, I'm a problem solver, I'm a fixer. But what you're actually doing is sending them your opinion. It's your opinion that it wasn't so bad. It's your opinion that they're going to get over it. It's not their opinion.
Mm.
So what you need to be doing is staying absolutely neutral. Okay? So neutral is, I'm here, I'm listening. Go on. Do you want my advice, or do you want me just to listen? I say that ad nauseum, even with my blown and groans. Am I here to respond or just to listen?
Yeah.
As neutral as you can be allows your child, this is the autonomy and the sitting in that discomfort to get there, to figure out on their own how to get back to left brain, right? How to come down out of that emotional state. You are not always going to be there after high school, whether they go off to, college or a job or whatever it is. You are not going to be there to be like, now. You might also have a child who says like, I need 5 minutes. This was me. And my child would get, and he wasn't always nice about it. Like he would tell me that, and that wasn't code for follow him down the hall and keep talking, which we tend to do. So I want you to think of this acronym, WAIT, and it stands for, why am I talking? Sometimes just sitting there in the silence allows your child to get from A to Z on their own. Every emotion is not an emergency.
Yeah.
So I had a parent, child was upstairs in their room doing homework. Parent was downstairs, I don't know, den, kitchen, wherever. And they were hearing, I know I'm not going to curse, but the child was like, like very loud, like, I effing hate this, you know what? I don't want to. And there was, punching, like there was a punching bag in the room to get.
Mm.
And the mom said to me, I did what you told me. I did what you told me to do. I didn't go up there. I sat and I waited and I listened and it stopped. And I was so upset, but I realized what you taught me was that not every emotion is an emergency, and that I had to allow them to sit in it, figure it out, and get to the other side, because I'm not always going to be there. And then, however, there's always up there, to me, there's always room for praise, always room for praise. Sometimes two things can exist at the same time. Your child could do something really crappy and tell you, the first thing you do is you praise them for coming and telling you. So if your child was emotional and angry and got over it all on their own, because they need that skill, they need to learn how to self-advocate. That is actually self-advocating. Then you need to be giving them a marching band and a parade. And you know what I mean by that. Like heaping the praise, but being specific in what it is you're praising. Not, I'm proud of you, because what are you proud of? But wow, I noticed that you were really struggling with your homework tonight. And yeah, you had a couple, you had a moment, but look at it, you got to the other side. That was really amazing of you. That I like hearing, because that's how we build habits, emotional rewards. So that would be my,
Yeah.
did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else you think you would want parents to have in mind,
Yeah.
if you have like one more point that you would make that you would want them to
Yes.
have?
So I think we spend a lot of time sometimes on the wrong things when it comes to our kids. And I know you and I talked pre-show about what do I feel is like the biggest muscle that your student needs, like whether it's going to college or somewhere else. I would even rewind that and say, I think it's the biggest skill your child really just needs in general. And it's, yes, being able to advocate for yourself and being able to regulate is definitely one of them. But I said this to you, your child needs willpower. They really need willpower. And I don't mean willpower like, doing something that's illegal or whatever. I'm not talking about like R-rated willpower. I'm talking about what we call micro moment willpower. It's the kid that, it doesn't even have to be college. It's the kid that's sitting in high school and it's Sunday night and they've got a ton of work to do and it's due Monday and their friend calls, or maybe it's Sunday afternoon. Hey, we're all getting together at, Jim's house to watch Sunday night football and have chicken wings. Can you come? And that student needs to be able to say, no, I can't. Or it's the kid that goes, I really need to like read this book or do these questions and knows how to turn this off or turn this off. And I do not believe in computer controls once a kid is a junior in high school, because there will be nobody after college telling your kid needs to learn those controls on your own. Younger students, I believe in full control. I do. But I do not believe once your kid hits like 16 that they need to figure that out on their own, and you might be paying for it spectacularly for a while, but it will, meaning not paying money, but it will pay off. So that's what I mean by willpower.
Yeah.
They need that muscle. They need to be able to say no. They need to be able to say, I need to get up at 8 a.m. because I have a group project and we're meeting. That's willpower.
Yeah. And what I loved about that is not just the willpower, but the micro moments,
We
right?
call it micro
It's
moments.
there's small decisions
Mm-hmm.
all day, all night that
All day, all night.
we're all faced with, right?
Yes.
And to
Yes.
be able to say, I can quickly scan the situation, like we talked about, right? Like I can scan, do I
Right.
understand the impact? Do I understand the decision that's in
Am I
front of me and the
sitting in my
consequence?
discomfort?
Yeah. So the concept of the micro moment also leads to there you're going to have an opportunity to make another choice, a better choice tomorrow, right? It's that same. Yes, every moment, every decision has an impact, but in most cases,
Yes.
it's
And we
not life
teach
ending.
kids
Yeah.
how to do that. We actually teach it in our coaching. It's called, yeah,
Okay.
we do. Of
Yeah.
course we do. And we teach it to parents. It's called time travel. It's actually called time travel. We say to the student, this is the question we want you to ask yourself: how will I feel? And we want you to present it to yourself positively and negatively. I know that sounds a little like funkadoo, but it works. It's this but it has to be concrete. So it's, how will you feel an hour from now? So here's the positive. Or we start on the positive. How will you feel an hour from now that you made the decision not to go and your paper will be done? How will you feel? Or conversely, how will you feel on Saturday when all your friends are getting together to go to the whatever and you can't because you didn't work on your paper now? So that's a big one, because believe it or not, it sets your child up for choice and control.
Well, what I also love about it is it's not the parent telling them you're going to feel this way.
That's
If
right.
you don't do this, you're going to
Oh,
feel this way. It's
how are you going to
you
feel?
tell me, how are you going to, you know what bad choices feel like. You know what
Right.
regret feels like. How are
Right.
you going to feel? Say it out loud so we both know.
Exactly. And it's important because if you have any kind of executive dysfunction, that future awareness piece,
Yes.
seeing the not now, is not there.
Yes.
So we do that all the time. How are you going to feel? Time travel. Put yourself an hour from now, 2 hours from now, make it very specific. And believe it or not, it actually
Yeah.
helps. It
And
really does.
and again, I think not only this is for everyone, right? It's am I going to watch the next Netflix show and the show I'm binge watching, or am I going to get up and do the thing I need to do, right? I mean, that's not at all relatable to how I spent my day yesterday. This has been so great. I'm asking all of my guests the same
Yeah.
questions
Sure.
about kind of getting unstuck and thinking about the
Oh,
different things that are part of what this podcast is all about. So my first question for you is, do you have any techniques or tips that you use to get unstuck and get motivated when you have to do something you don't want to do?
so I don't think this is the answer you want. I'm lucky that I have a lot of people who work for me, and believe it or not, I have them like, if I know I have to do something work wise and it's due, I will like say to somebody on my team who's like part of that, okay, let's meet Wednesday at 3. And knowing that that appointment and deadline is there for me, like gets me there. But if it's just a Leslie thing, I am old school. I still set a timer. I find that if I break things down into very tangible chunks of time, that I still work time over task. It just helps me activate then, because to me, there are things that I have to do that are foreboding. They really are. And that I really don't want to do. But if I sit here and I also, other thing, I have to clear the deck.
Mm,
Like I can't have other things physically in my eye line. So like I have to take everything away and be like, okay, this is the only thing I'm going to focus on now. I'm going to set my timer and it's like beat the clock. Again, I feel like I am aging myself. But that chunking, when I don't have somebody else who can be my accountability buddy
yeah.
for it, that's how I do it.
Good. A lot that you said in there, and I think it reminds me that one of the big things I've learned from you over the years is how important the environment is
Yes,
to support productivity. And
yes.
I'm always talking about that with people. My second question, if anything were possible, doesn't matter the era, money, school, abilities, is there a career that you might have liked to try?
Okay, so here's a fun fact you might not know. Years and years and years, like years ago, I wanted, this actually makes sense. There was talk on the table and it was serious that I really wanted to be a superintendent, not a superintendent, sorry, I wanted to be a principal of a school. That's what I didn't want to be a teacher, but I wanted to be a principal. I thought that my working with kids and like that organized administrative head would make like I'd be the perfect principal, but that never happened. Life got in the way. This became what it was, and that one. But that, if you really think about it, that would have been. And then if I really am thinking, like I always wanted to be not in the movies, but I always wanted to be on Broadway. That would have always been if I would that would have been my dream.
Super fun. Oh,
100% my
I love
dream.
that. I love that. And then finally, what is something that you do for yourself when life is chaos
Really.
to hit the reset button?
Um, I do a lot of things, but I think the thing that probably works the most, like, do you mean like minutely or big picture?
Just
Like,
how do you recharge and refresh
okay,
when you're down?
so if I need like 5 minutes, like, oh my God, right now I am so overwhelmed. I need 5 minutes. Okay, here's my secret. I play canasta on my phone. I love games and it really plays to that side of my brain and it calms my nervous system down. Otherwise, I'm blessed. I live literally a block from the Pacific Ocean and I take a walk.
Yeah.
There's something to me about the beach and that expansiveness that really helps me like see life for the perspective that it is.
You're like me that growing up on Long Island, like the water was never that far away.
Oh,
And I remember going to college and meeting people who like had never been to the ocean, and it was
yeah.
just incomprehensible to me that they wouldn't know what that feels like, what you just talked about.
I grew up in a town called
Yeah.
Oceanside. Like it's, I mean,
Literally.
my house growing up was on an
Yeah.
inlet that led out to the Atlantic Ocean on the South Shore of Long Island. I mean, like I do not know life without a body of water. That is just my love language. So it always helps
I
me.
get it.
Water helps me feel smaller than I need to feel in a good way.
I
In a
love
good way.
that. Good. Well, thank you for those. And thank you so much for this
Oh, you're
conversation. I know we
welcome.
covered a lot of different
Lots.
things, and I'm going to share in kind of in the show notes some resources. I want to get that Attitude magazine link about the question about
Yes.
the driving too. I want to make sure I share that. I'll share about your coaching, about your webinars, all sorts of things in there. So if people want to find more ways to get in touch with Leslie Josel or out of chaos, there are ways to do it. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Oh,
you being
Kathy, this
here.
was fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks
Yeah.
everyone for listening.
Well, that was great. And I think that Leslie gave so much generosity of her story and her experience, her rich, deep experience. in a short period of time. I mean, what we can cover in an hour is like scratching the surface of the kinds of things that she helps people with every day. I mentioned earlier that there's so much that I've learned from Leslie over the years that have helped me when I've worked with families or when I've worked with clients with ADHD, and those families that are kind of a blend, kind of a mixed mixed house of neurodivergency. But I think I'm always learning. And like she said, she's always trying to think about 6 months ahead and kind of understand for her business and her coaches and her webinars how to continuously kind of understand and evolve where she's seeing people have needs. It's important for me to do the same in kind of tracking her and where things are going and staying abreast of that so that I can serve my clients better. I hope you got a lot out of this. I hope it turned on a couple of ideas for you if you're someone who's been struggling a little bit with where their kid's at, whether that's an ADHD or an executive function issue, or just, teens and tweens growing through that independence and that negotiating of those boundaries and kind of adjusting your own framework as you go about the best way to handle and guide them through that. A ton of information I'm going to share in the show notes. So if you want to know more about Leslie or Order Out of Chaos or her book or her planner or her webinars, I'm going to share all that there. So please be sure to check that out. Thanks for being here.